I've taken a break from work for a few minutes because this is a really difficult and weird day to be a gay man wherever you are in the world. I think since the massacre that happened in the Pulse Club in Orlando at a gay bar where a guy took hostages and killed dozens of people, injured dozens of people. I tweeted about this. This is a horrible reminder, a really harrowing reminder that we are a minority that is still hated by a large number of people. And if we needed a justification to still have pride parades where equality has seemed to have been achieved across most of the West in terms of our relationship rights and our rights in the workplace and our rights as customers, it's a really horrible reminder that people will justify violence against us just because of the way the people that we end up falling in love with. It was particularly harrowing for me because as somebody who travels quite a lot, I always, almost always go to the local gay bar of wherever I'm traveling. I've been to Orlando, I haven't been to the Pulse Club, but I could have really easily been one of the people in that venue that was shot, injured or killed. And friends of mine could have really easily been amongst the many that ended up losing their lives over the weekend. And it is somewhat selfish to be emotional about that particular fact that, oh, I could have been affected by this. But it does bring it home. What was particularly harrowing was accounts that I heard of officers that are working on the scene at the moment in the club after the attacks, having to ignore the ringing cell phones of the people who were killed there because their loved ones were trying to reach them, trying to reach the people who are now dead. And fuck, that's a horrible image. There's been a lot of criticism of quite a lot of media in the UK at least, but also in the US, of this being of it not being highlighted that this was a homophobic attack. These people died because somebody thought that the fact that they fall in love with people of the same sex, or people of different genders, or they identify as a certain gender. People found their lifestyle disgusting. People found them as people disgusting. That's homophobia. And for a long time we haven't seen this number of people die because of something that they happen to be. There's been a lot of talk of the fact that this is an ISIS motivated attack. ISIS have claimed responsibility for it. There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of evidence to this apart from anecdotal stuff. And what's more, ISIS tend to claim responsibility for attacks wherever they happen, just because it's really fun for them to instill fear in people. I know one thing: I'm going to continue to not let terrorism, no matter who it's affected at, I'm not going to let terrorism affect the choices that I make. I am going to continue to frequent homosexual establishments. I'm going to continue with my plans to attend Pride events because it is LGBT Pride Month. And I would encourage you to, as well, to always be safe, but not let your decisions be marred by levels of fear that people want you to feel, because then they win. There's two other things that I want to address. Firstly, something that is obvious for the majority of us around the world, with stricter gun control laws, there wouldn't be this many massacres that happen across the US. Sort your shit out, frankly. And finally, something that I think is really important is the aspect of Islam in these attacks. I talk about this a lot with Jimmy on the podcast that I do, where we talk about social issues and current events, and he finds it baffling that I am not more offended by homophobia within Islam, because especially people especially among like ethnic groups, people who identify as Muslim are more likely to disagree with giving same-sex couples rights, are more likely to agree with the idea of gay people not being able to be treated the same as everybody else. We've also seen over the past like 24 hours the right-wing pundit from Breitbart, Milo Yiannopoulos, who is mildly entertaining but also has horrific views, say that this isn't homophobia, this isn't Islamic extremism, this is Islam. Violent people and homophobic people will choose whatever excuse they have in order to partake in violent acts. A good example of this that we also saw over the weekend was the large number of Russian and England fans in the European Championships who had Special Forces police have to break up riots at the football match that happened there. Those people don't represent English football fans, Russian football fans. Those people represent people who have looked for a place to be violent and looked for a place to pick a fight. I don't see anybody suggesting that the England fans that were in France over the weekend were representative of the majority of people that are backing the England team. It does seem to be that a lot of Muslims justify homophobia through their faith. What I think is really important for us to remember is that being a Muslim does not mean that you are homophobic, and being accepting of gay people does not affect somebody's ability to be a Muslim. Homophobic people are homophobic people no matter what ethnic background they come from, and they will use anything in their arsenal, be it Christianity or class or personal experience or Islam. They will use any excuse that they have in order to justify their actions, and sometimes violent actions, against gay people. And so I think when there's a lot of heat and a lot of emotion surrounding this particular massacre that happened in Orlando, it's important that we remember that Islam isn't the problem here. Homophobia and extremism are. And as long as we keep our heads screwed on in those two senses, we can only win. I think that's all I have to say about this. What people who are extreme and what people who are hateful want is for there to be panic and for there to be more divisions. Don't let that happen. I'm out. Bye.